Welcome back to the channel. I'm Algabot, and this is where we take apart automated trading strategies, line by line, so you can understand exactly how they think. Today we're looking at an expert advisor for MetaTrader 5 called Parabolic Stall Reversal. This one is a little different from most strategies we cover because it uses no indicators at all. There's no moving average, no oscillator, no momentum line. Instead, it reads raw candlesticks, hunting for the moment a runaway move runs out of fuel and stalls. By the end of this video, you'll understand every condition it checks before it ever places a trade. So let's set the scene. Parabolic Stall Reversal is a counter-trend or reversal strategy. It is built on a very old market observation. Strong directional moves are often born from a run of same-colored candles that accelerate into a fresh high or low, and then, quite suddenly, they exhaust themselves. The crowd that pushed price there runs out of buyers or out of sellers, and the move stalls. This expert advisor is designed to detect that exact moment of exhaustion and to position for the snapback that frequently follows. What makes it interesting is that it is purely price action driven. Everything it knows about the market comes from raw open, high, low, and close values. There are no indicators to lag behind price and nothing to repaint. It simply counts candles and measures their ranges. The strategy works on any symbol and any time frame you attach it to, because it adapts its sense of scale to the recent average bar range. On a fast pair, it will expect smaller moves. On a volatile one, it will expect larger ones. That keeps the logic consistent whether you run it on the euro against the dollar, on gold, or on an index. In terms of who this suits, think of a trader who is fascinated by candlestick behavior and exhaustion patterns, and who wants to see those ideas expressed in strict, mechanical rules rather than gut feel. It is selective by design. It will sit on its hands for long stretches, waiting for a textbook parabolic run followed by a clean rejection bar. That patience is the whole point. Now, an important note before we go further. Everything in this video is for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice, and nothing here is a promise of any particular outcome. We are studying how the code makes decisions, not recommending you trade it. With that said, let's open up the engine and see how it actually works. Let's walk through the decision process exactly as the expert advisor runs it. First, the strategy only evaluates once per freshly closed bar. It ignores the noise of every incoming tick and waits for a candle to finish, so its decisions are stable. It then checks that there are enough historical bars on the chart to perform every calculation safely, and that there isn't already an open position for its magic number. It trades one position at a time and lets the stop-loss and take-profit manage the exit. Next, the strategy measures the average bar range over the most recent bars, set by the range period input. This average becomes its ruler. It uses it to decide what counts as a big move and how wide to place its stop buffer. Now the core pattern. The EA looks back and tries to count a streak of consecutive same-color candles. For a bullish exhaustion, it needs a run of bars that each close above their open. As it counts, it tracks the highest high of the run. It also checks that the most recent streak bar is the one that made the peak, meaning price was still accelerating into the extreme. Then it confirms that peak is a genuinely fresh high, that no bar in the look-back window behind the streak reached as high. This makes sure we're at the leading edge of the move, not somewhere in the middle. Then comes the thrust test. The EA measures the net advance of the streak, from the low of its oldest bar to the peak. That advance must be at least MinThrust multiple times the average range. This is what makes the move parabolic rather than ordinary. A small drift won't qualify. Finally, and most importantly, the strategy detects the stall. The very next bar must do three things at once. It must print the opposite color, it must close back through the previous bar's close, and it must finish in the far half of its own range, which signals a decisive rejection. Only when all of that lines up does the EA act. After a bullish exhaustion, it sells. After a bearish exhaustion, it buys. For risk, the stop-loss sits just beyond the exhaustion extreme, plus a small buffer set by stop buffer PCT. The take-profit is placed at a multiple of that risk, defined by the RewardRisk input. The structure is entirely price-derived, which is exactly the philosophy of this system. Here's the heart of the expert advisor as it looks in MetaEditor. At the top are the 7 inputs that shape every decision. StreakBars is how many consecutive same-color candles make a valid run. Raise it, and you demand a longer, cleaner streak. Look back is the window behind the streak that the extreme must dominate, so a larger value insists on a more significant high or low. MinThrustMult sets how explosive the move must be, measured against the average range. A higher value filters out all but the steepest thrusts. RewardRisk defines the target as a multiple of the risk. Stop buffer PCT adds a cushion beyond the extreme, so the stop isn't clipped by a wick. Range period controls how many bars feed the average range ruler, and lots is simply the trade size. Below the inputs is the signal logic for a bullish exhaustion that leads to a short. First, it computes thrust, the net advance of the streak from its starting low to its peak. Then it builds the stall test. The trigger bar must close below its open, so it's the opposite color. It must close below the previous bar's close, taking background. And it must close below its own midpoint, the trig mid value, which marks a rejection that finishes in the lower half of the bar. The final if statement combines everything. The peak sits at the end of the run, the high is fresh, the thrust clears the threshold, and the stall is confirmed. Only then does it act. Entry is taken at the current bid. The stop is the streak high plus the buffer. Risk is the distance from entry to that stop, and the take profit is the entry minus reward risk times that risk. Then it sends the sell order. The long side mirrors this exactly, just flipped. Let's walk through this illustration the way the expert advisor sees it. On the left, watch the first 4 candles. They are all bearish, each one closing lower, and they accelerate down into a fresh low marked by the green dashed line. That is the parabolic thrust into a bearish exhaustion. Now look at the 5th candle. It flips to the opposite color, closes back above the previous bar's close, and finishes in the upper half of its own range. That is the stall the strategy waits for. With the fresh low confirmed and the thrust large enough, the EA takes a long here at the buy entry marker, placing its stop just below the exhaustion low. Price then turns and climbs, bar by bar, until it reaches the take profit marker a few candles later, where the long is closed. Now the move keeps running upward, and a new pattern forms. From around the 8th candle onward, we get a clean streak of bullish bars accelerating into a fresh high, shown by the red dashed line. This is a bullish exhaustion building. Watch the candle right after the peak. It prints bearish, closes back through the prior bar's close, and finishes in the lower half of its range. That is the stall on the short side. The EA sells at the sell entry marker, with its stop tucked just above the exhaustion high. From there, price rolls over and falls, reaching the second take profit marker where the short is closed. 2 trades, both built from nothing but the shape of the candles. Remember, this is an illustration for educational purposes, not a prediction of how any real market will move. So that's the Parabolic Stall Reversal Expert Advisor. We covered the idea behind it, the way it counts a streak of same-color candles into a fresh extreme, the thrust test that makes the move parabolic, and the all-important stall bar that confirms exhaustion before it ever enters. We also walked through the MQL5 code and saw how the stop and target are built purely from price structure. Remember, this video is educational content only and not financial advice. If you found it useful, please hit that like button, subscribe for more MetaTrader 5 strategy breakdowns, and drop a comment telling me which strategy you'd like me to analyze next. You can find more at www.algobot.live. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Trade responsibly.